We have
David Lamb.
We have David Lamb, a lawmaker from Medical and Health Services. Dr. Lamb, welcome back to Backchat.
Good morning.
We've had you on talking about anti-smoking measures when the government consultation proposals first came out, and now we have the team from University of Hong Kong calling for a total ban. What's your response?
Well, if you look at their proposal, a total ban is not something to be done tomorrow, and it's a time scale of like 7-8 years. I'm not quite sure whether we can achieve that in such a period of time. But end game for tobacco, it's a worldwide trend. It's not only a trend, but also supported by international medical studies, because we all know tobacco is bad for health. It causes cancer and a lot of other diseases. There's no question about it. So the end game plan is there. It's just a matter of time.
So you support a total ban. You're just questioning maybe the year in just in 7 years' time, 2030. Is that right, Dr. Lamb?
Well, of course, I wish the day should come early. But then if you look at what we have been doing in the past couple of years, if you start like in the 1980s, the smoking rate was like over 20% back then, like 25 or 26%. And over a period of almost 30 years, we push it down to 10. And then in a matter of 6-7 years, you want to put it down to 0. It's quite a challenging feat. But of course, I think this is the right direction to go for.
Okay,
now,
but the 0 is pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
I mean, 0 is very aggressive. I mean, if I look in New Zealand, they don't say 0, they probably have the most aggressive tapering regime in the world right now.
No, they say an end game, which is lower than 5%.
Sure, but that's not 0. That's not 0.
Close to. Now, if you just think about it, people who smoke nowadays, they would probably be adults. You don't expect teenagers to smoke openly. So the first step is to prevent teenagers from picking up the habit. And then you step up all the means of encouraging people to quit, and hopefully we can reduce it step by step. I'm not quite sure we can really achieve the 7.5% in 2 years' time, or less than 2 years.
So New Zealand tapering, if I read it correctly, is that in 2023 it will prohibit anyone born after January 1, 2009 from buying cigarettes. And then in July 1, 2024, they will reduce the number of retailers able to sell tobacco products. And then in 2025, reduce the amount of nicotine that is allowed to be included in tobacco products. And then in January 1, 2027, prohibits the sale of smoked tobacco products to anyone born after 1 January 2009. So that's the most aggressive regime, and that's not a total ban. I mean, they're tapering. Are we planning to taper, or are we planning a total ban?
The final outcome should be a total ban. Worldwide, I'm not talking about Hong Kong. Just think about it. What is the purpose of tobacco smoking? Give me a useful purpose of tobacco smoking.
Well, drinking alcohol, I mean, having a nice
You're
drink.
an occasional smoker, aren't you, Paul, right?
No, I'm an occasional smoker. My mother is a permanent smoker.
Right.
He does 2 packs a day. My dad died of smoking.
Exactly. Tell me the useful purpose of smoking. It has been in this world, all around the world, not only in parts of Native Americans. They do smoke for generations, but not for the rest of the world until like 100 years ago or 150 years ago. And then what purpose does it serve apart from killing a lot of people and putting a lot of people out of work and putting a lot of people in the hospital? If there's no useful purpose, why should we still leave it on Earth? What is the use of having this harmful product that serves no useful purpose at all?
Sure, but they're more harmful. So
yeah,
you can.
I'm not quite sure how. Have you been in Hong Kong for as long as I have?
40 years.
Yeah, I've been here 50 odd years. Now, when I was younger, when we stepped into any bus, public light bus, restaurant, bars, or even in the lift, there would be people smoking.
Sure, it's horrible.
Back then, in the 80s, more than 1 in 4 people smokes. So if you go into a lift, like there were 10 people, 2 or 3 will be smoking. And we all understand that smoke today smoking is not only harmful, it causes cancer and lots of other serious diseases.
Sure, but that's a very different thing.
What gives these people the right to harm me?
So, David, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like me harming you by smoking in confined environments. I mean, we used to fly airplanes and then people were smoking next to you. It was horrible. In a lift, then it is horrible. I mean, of course, if you're forced to smoke, other people smoke it, and that is, of course, it shouldn't be put upon you. But this is, we talk about here the freedom of people to smoke themselves.
The right of stabbing people on the street. It's absurd, right? So you can't do that. Now, we're talking about, say, what about, you look at the study done by the Hong Kong University, children, high school students who are at home, they're exposed to secondhand smoking, like 30% in the past 7 days. And if you count neighbors, that's more. So it's everywhere. So how do you really protect these younger generation from the harm of cigarette, the secondhand smoking and third-hand smoking?
Sure, that's
unless
education.
you ban it one day in the future. I'm not talking about tomorrow.
But that's an educational issue too, isn't it?
Okay, we're discussing the University of Hong Kong's or the medical school's proposals for a total ban on smoking in Hong Kong. You just heard Dr. David Lam from Lawmaker Medical and Health Services. Also with us is Dr. Daniel Ho from the University of Hong Kong. If you do have any thoughts on this topic, you can email us at backchat@rthk.hk, or you go to our Facebook page, Backchat on RTHK Radio 3, and join the lively debate there about this proposal. Let me bring in some contrasting comments appearing on our Facebook page. Marcus says, I support the ban on tobacco, even if it is against my core values of not banning anything. Nicotine is a worse drug than any. So ban tobacco and legalise harmless CBD and marijuana alcohol. That's another story. Mike then comes in to respond. A very different view. Says, what? Wear your mask, take your jab, now ban the weed. I literally hate cigarettes, but I hate totalitarian governments even more. As I said, if you have any comments, do feel free to join the debate on our Facebook page. Let's go back to Dr. Daniel Ho from the University of Hong Kong. Dr. Ho, you've been quoted as saying that if there is any place in the world that can successfully ban tobacco, it would be Hong Kong. Do you want to explain more?
Yes. Well, first, to start with, Hong Kong has the lowest tobacco use on earth. And we are talking not only about cigarettes, but also other things, including e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products. And we only have to deal with combustible products if we have to ban it. And then our economy does not rely on tobacco industry. We don't have big tobacco companies. We don't grow tobacco in Hong Kong. And as for enforcement, our government is strong in that sense. And then the public support is high. Everyone, virtually everyone in Hong Kong understands the harms of tobacco. And in Hong Kong, the Chinese culture, we do not put individual freedom above collective welfare, and we do emphasize children's welfare, children's development, health. And also we have a very good support on a total ban. I mean, into the big surveys done during 2019 to 2021, involving more than 12,000 people, an average of 77% of people supported banning tobacco by 2030, and that includes 17% of current smokers. So we have all these favorable conditions to allow us to be the first successful place on earth to ban tobacco.
Did the survey also ask people why they don't support the ban, especially those who have identified themselves as non-smokers?
No, it's a quantitative survey involving thousands of people. So unlike interviews, we cannot go deep into the reasons. But this question was asked when Hong Kong has never been seriously discussing a total ban. So people receive this question out of the blue, and then they have to make a decision whether they support or not. And I do believe once we have a discussion in the general public, the support will even be bigger.
Now, Dr. Ho, let's be clear. I mean, what you're proposing is, I mean, New Zealand is often seen as sort of leading the way in banning smoking, but they're not imposing or at least not initially, a total ban. They're only banning people under a certain age. from smoking, or not even from smoking, from the sale of cigarettes. What you're proposing is much more radical than New Zealand, isn't that right? I mean, you're just saying no, even if people have been smoking all their lives, they may have been smoking 40 years, they're addicted to smoking, they have to stop in 7 years' time if your proposal is implemented.
Now, you know the WHO's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, the first international treaty on health, signed by 182 countries, covering more than 90% of the world's population. They all have the same ultimate goal to phase out tobacco use. The only difference is that different countries have different situations, and not all of them are ready to ban smoking right now or in a few years. It all depends on the culture, the current smoking preference or tobacco use preference. Now in New Zealand, the overall preference of smoking might be not very high, but in certain subgroups in the country was up to, say, 1/4 of the different ethnicity in New Zealand. So they may not be ready. New Zealand has a different approach. They used e-cigarettes to replace smoking. So what they talk about smoke-free is cigarette-free. But they are creating another problem of e-cigarette use. And you might have heard that the parents in New Zealand came out to protest against the rapidly increasing e-cigarette use among the children. And we do not want to see that. Tobacco, as David said, is unnecessary and increasingly an uncivilized behavior. So there's no reason why we cannot ban it. If we can ban it.
But so the question from Danny is that whether or not you are to propose that Hong Kong will be the first and only place in the world where there will be a total ban on tobacco products.
Well, if we do pass the bill to ban it, say by 2030, I think we will be likely to be successful. Right.
Well, I mean, it's a minority who smoke in Hong Kong. So, I mean, if you're going to go by democratic principles, if they still apply, then the non-smokers will win the vote.
We don't always just use sheer numbers to oppose others, but tobacco is an evil product. I mean, marketed by a prior industry. It's quite different. It's totally different from other consumer products like soft drinks and like food. I mean, it's totally different, and we do not.
Sugar isn't a very happy product either. But just to reconfirm for the third time, you are proposing a total ban as the only place in the world within the next few years, and that's your proposal.
Well, I mean, our proposal is to ban tobacco in Hong Kong. I mean, of course, not anywhere else.
A total ban in Hong Kong for tobacco.
In Hong Kong, yes, for tobacco. To ban it like drugs.
Okay.
That was our proposal.
Let's bring in some comments from listeners. A lot of comments coming in from listeners, and actually universally on the same side. If you've got any thoughts on this topic, do email us at backchat@rthk.hk. Let me try and bring in a selection of the comments. Rick says, given Hong Kong is a nanny state, a smoking ban is an obvious move. Have we banned shark fin soup yet? Hong Kong could probably go a lot further. Ban cars maybe, shut bars down, ban flying, air conditioning. Where might this control end? And Rick says, well, that said, I'm actually a confirmed smoker. Brett says, smoking is bad, but consuming a physical addictive compound which in sufficient quantity will kill and has an effect that calls into question the simultaneous operation of, for example, a motor vehicle is okay, ? Somehow the problem of second-hand smoke seems to pale in comparison. And to put a typical Hong Kong spin on this, in what way would the government tax us all to make up the shortfall from tobacco duty, as raising the financial consequences there? And finally, for the moment, Beth says, is this doctor completely mad? Ban smoking. I used to smoke for longer than 30 years, but what right do they have to ban smoking? No, I smoke no longer for 30 years. What right do they have to ban smoking? People have the right to choose whether they want to die or not. Next thing, they will ban alcohol. We may as well live in Iran where everything is banned. We have the right to decide on our health, not to be dictated to by some doctor that wants to be heard.
So, David Lam, I mean, isn't it better to focus on protection of the innocent? We talked about smoking in the presence of children or smoking at home, rather than on banning cigarette smoking overall?
Oh, well, overall is always the ultimate goal. See, if you see anywhere in the world, like, say, in the United States of America, no one would encourage someone to shoot on the street. But then guns are not illegal. So when something is not illegal, someone will use it and abuse it. So eventually you have to ban something like cigarettes in the long run. I'm not sure about the time. You talked about people who have been smoking for 40 years, 50 years. Well, is there any reason why they cannot stop smoking anytime soon? We have, as doctors, we have seen many, many people coming just too late. Either they have lung cancer, severe chronic obstructive airway diseases, or other diseases related to smoking. Of course, there are some who come with diseases related to alcohol abuse as well. Then it's never too late to stop smoking. So to say that, I have been smoking for 30 years, 40 years, what right you have there to stop me from smoking further? This is not the correct argument. The correct argument is that, come on, you've been smoking for 30 years. Your lung is basically damaged. And the harm is there and it's accumulated. If you don't stop today, then very likely you run a really much higher chance of developing heart diseases, lung diseases, and cancers. So it's a choice up there for people to choose. Better stop.
Dr. Lam, do you think there is support in the Legislative Council for a total ban?
It always depends on timing. I mentioned time again is not something we can do tomorrow. But I am not very optimistic that we can do it anytime soon, given that our tax on tobacco is just like 68% today, which is short of the 75% suggested by World Health Organization. We have a lot to do further, and education, and also on the advertising bits and so on and so forth. Unless we really do good on all the aspects, and people are well educated to quit smoking and never to start smoking, then there's a possibility that we can achieve an end game and then ultimately a total ban. I do not want to speculate on the time, but the direction is correct.
Okay, so you're a favourite of tapering. You would like to would you consider the measures that I just read out as being the strategy of New Zealand for tapering the smoking of these tobacco products?
No, tapering has an ultimate goal of stopping. So tapering is not like tapering forever and ever and ever. Ultimately, it's a complete cessation, and that is something I would support.
Okay.
But then as for the time, we cannot wait until next century, right? So we have to be quick.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to have to take a break there for the news, and we'll thank very much. You just heard Dr. David Lam, a lawmaker, medical and health services, and Dr. Daniel Ho from the University of Hong Kong. Stay with us. We're going to be continuing the discussion on this topic after the news.